to move our GDP from the...
Thanks for staying with TVC News. The South Korean military says North Korea has test-fired short-range ballistic missiles towards the Sea of Japan just a day after it conducted joint drills with the United States using stealth fighter jets to stimulate air combat. The Korean Central News Agency report says the missiles tested on Friday were equipped with a new autonomous navigation system. North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, reportedly oversaw the launch and promised to boost the country's nuclear force. In a brief statement, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles launched were made from North Korea's eastern coast region. The statement did not provide further details, but adds that an analysis is underway. David DePape, the man who attacked the husband of former U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi, has been sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was convicted of assault and attempted kidnap of a federal official in November 2023 after a week-long trial in San Francisco. The attack left poor Pelosi, now 84, in the hospital for 6 days with a fractured skull and other injuries. The former U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi had asked for a very long sentence to be given to her husband, attacker. Prosecutors had asked the judge that Mr. DePape be sentenced to 40 years in jail, but he got 30. He is also facing life imprisonment on separate state charges. And the United Nations Human Rights Chief has expressed horror over the escalating violence in the Darfur region of northern Sudan, as a top humanitarian official described the worsening situation on the ground as hell on earth. Thousands of displaced persons are sheltering in El Fasher without basic supplies amid fears that nearby fighting will turn into an all-out battle for the city, the western region of Darfur. The UN Human Rights Office says at least 58 persons have been killed around El Fasher since last week. Western nations are trying to push the warring sides to embrace peace negotiations for an end to the 13-month war. The UN Human Rights Office says it is disturbed by the situation of migrants in Tunisia and the rise in the use of dehumanizing and racist rhetoric against black migrants and black Tunisians. UN spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani told journalists in Geneva that the UN Human Rights Office has recorded incidents of arbitrary arrest and detention of human rights defenders, lawyers and journalists critical of the government, as well as its migration policies in Tunisia. She says in the past week, raids on the Tunisia Bar Association were reported, and they undermine the rule of law and violate international standards on the protection of the independence and functions of lawyers. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk also urges the authorities to respect freedom of expression.
We're very concerned by the increased targeting in Tunisia of migrants, mostly from the south of the Sahara, and individuals and organizations working to assist them. At the same time, we're witnessing a rise in the use of dehumanizing and racist rhetoric against black migrants and black Tunisians. Our office has recorded incidents of arbitrary arrest and detention of human rights defenders, lawyers, and journalists who are critical of the government, as well as the government's migration policies. Reported raids in the past week on the Tunisia Bar Association undermine the rule of law and violate international standards on the protection of the independence and function of lawyers. The rule of law must be upheld, and those arbitrarily detained, including for defending the rights of migrants and for combating racial discrimination, released.
Now let's turn our attention to international efforts on Nigeria's development. The United Nations is appealing for $306 million to mitigate the impact of food insecurity and malnutrition in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe State. The UN says the need for this funding is urgent and time-bound in order to mitigate starvation, negative coping mechanisms such as child labor and increased prostitution. Rio Thomas has the details.
This is the launch of the lean season food security and nutrition crisis multi-sector plan.
Not only the donor, but the UN partner, the NGO,
The aim of this launch is to appeal to development partners and the international community to support the government in providing food to the very vulnerable people impacted by crises and issues of climate change.
As we speak, we have over 5.9 million children under 5 facing acute malnutrition, out of which 1.6 million are severely and acutely malnourished.
As the rainy season is fast approaching, I want to enjoin relevant stakeholders and the public to take adequate precautionary measures to mitigate the possible impact of flooding as well, which may adversely impact on the agricultural sector, thereby compounding food insecurity in the country.
Statistics has shown that acute malnutrition rates are expected to rise, with an estimated 4.8 million people being at risk of severe hunger during this year's Lent season. And as we know, this group of people are about 14 times more likely to die.
UN OCHA country representative says the target is to reach 2.8 million people with food, about 1 million people with nutrition, and 1.8 million people to be provided with protection. In his presentation, Mr. Trump says UN achieved food provision for 3.2 million people against the 2.6 million people that were the target for 2023.
We also need to look at the long-term interventions from government and development partners to scale up efforts for the restoration of basic services as well as livelihoods, particularly agricultural livelihoods, so that this may be the last year that we do a lean season.
Now, we feel the key solution, FAO and World Food Program working in the agriculture-related sector of the United Nations, is to get people back on their farms. Production, self-reliance through their own produce. But that's going to take some time.
The three northeast states of Borno, Adamawa and Yobe also assured of commitment to ending food insecurity by ensuring more farmers are able to return to food production. Muya Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Now let's look at energy matters in Africa. Former President of Ghana, John Mahama, and Nigeria's former Minister of Power and Engineering innovator, Professor Bath Inaji, have called on Nigeria and the rest of Africa to take firm steps to meet the sustainable energy requirements for development. They made the call at the intellectual leadership discourse titled "The Politics of Energy and the Way Forward" to celebrate the 64th birthday of former Nigeria's presidential candidate and media owner, Dele Momodu. Senior correspondent Solomon Ajuziodo was there.
The two main speakers reflect the relationship between political power and energy engineering in Africa. Former President John Mahama injected more than 800 megawatts of electric energy into Ghana, and Nigeria's former Minister of Power, engineering innovator, and founder of Geometric Energy, Professor Bath Inaji, have spoken to the real issues of chronic power outages on the continent.
Despite Africa's tremendous energy resources such as hydro, wind, solar, and hydrocarbon potential, the continent continues to suffer from a severe energy deficit that undermines equitable economic growth and development.
The faces of people at the Dele Momodu Leadership Intellectual Discourse to mark the 64th birthday of the journalist and founder of Ovation Media Group indicate the importance of the topic.
If I want to buy any product, all I need to do is pay and it will be delivered to me. So how come we pay for electricity and it cannot be delivered? With all our humongous investments in electricity, they've all gone up practically in smoke. The more we paid, the less electricity we got.
Led in this leadership discourse by the former president of Ghana, John Mahama, and Nigeria's former Minister of Power, Professor Bath Inaji, they prefer solution to this one issue dear to the heart of every Nigerian, who is asking, when will the country get it right?
When we look more specifically at the country's energy resources, such as its oil, gas, and other minerals, Nigeria has the unique opportunity and the potential to achieve energy security and sufficiency for itself and indeed the entire West African sub-region.
You need to be adding, you said over 12% of energy to your country year on year. Because if you're going to grow the economy, that's what you need.
Nigerians generally appear to believe Ghana has a better electric energy management and output. President Mahama outlines examples of the West African countries' energy challenges and work plan as some lessons for Nigeria to model after.
I led the fastest mobilization of thermal power in the history of Ghana, mobilizing about 1,000 megawatts of emergency thermal power to the country's generation mix by the time I left office in 2017. In Ghana, almost 80% of all electricity is generated using liquid natural gas. The other 20% continues to rely on fossil fuels.
For Professor Naji, the need for global energy security is complicated by the pertinent concerns for global climate change issues and armed conflicts surrounding natural energy resources and economics affecting many countries and corporations.
I believe that we can achieve all of this if we apply the willpower as a nation and the right frame of mind to change the energy equation, just like the BRIC and the CBET countries. It is self-evident that nations and commercial entities are guided principally by their interests, despite their strong pledges to fight the climate change with all their might and resources.
Today, our world is at a crossroads of what has become known as the energy trilemma. That is sustainability, energy security, and affordability. Already many Western countries have taken the path of transitioning to renewable energy, primarily because of the factor of climate change, and partly due to global geopolitical tensions.
The issues outlined in this discourse by former President Mahama and Professor Naji are the brick walls the Nigerian government and energy engineers must deal with and overcome if the country must go beyond the politics and provide the urgently needed energy for development. Solomon Ajiziogo, TVC News, Lagos.
And that's TVC News this hour. Thanks for watching. From here, we'll be joining a live broadcast from Taraba State.